Have you ever paused to consider how precise our universe is? Billions of galaxies, each with billions of stars, choreograph themselves in a cosmic ballet that's persisted for eons. Our own sun sits at just the right distance from Earth. Any closer, we'd fry; any farther, we'd freeze. Astronomers marvel that, across millions of years, this celestial harmony remains stable. Then there's the incredible biology right here at home, the human brain capable of invention and imagination. The heart regulating blood flow and oxygen, and the perfect recycling of energy from sunlight fueling plants to animals and eventually us, completing an endless cycle of life. Given such precision, is it really so far-fetched to believe that human life, with all its complexity, continues in some form beyond death? Medically speaking, death usually happens when the heart stops, cardiac death, or when the brain ceases to function, brain death. Deprived of oxygen, the body begins to break down. Rigor mortis sets in, stiffening muscles. Livor mortis gives skin those purplish patches. Algor mortis cools the body to match its surroundings. Meanwhile, gut bacteria starts a feast of its own, turning the body into a vibrant microbiological ecosystem. And the brain, that miraculous organ we use to interpret reality, can experience a last surge of neural activity, leading some to report bright lights or feeling immense peace in near-death scenarios. Let's explore how different faiths interpret what happens beyond the grave. In Islam, death is viewed as a gateway to an eternal journey. Muslims believe in the resurrection of the body and soul on the Day of Judgment, followed by divine assessment of one's deeds. The Quran describes paradise, Jannah, as a place of peace and unimaginable reward, and hell, Jahannam, as a realm for those who chose to reject divine guidance. Importantly, there's also an intermediate state called Barzakh, where souls await final judgment. Given Islam's emphasis on moral accountability, it's no surprise that many Muslims find hope and meaning in the promise of eventual reunion with loved ones in a blissful hereafter. Across South Asia, Hinduism teaches the concept of reincarnation, samsara, the soul's repeated birth and rebirth. A person's deeds, karma, determine the form and quality of their next life. Whether that's human, animal, or something else entirely, the ultimate goal? Moksha, liberation from this cycle, usually through spiritual insight and virtuous living. Similarly, Buddhism proposes that beings move through a cycle of rebirth shaped by karma. However, Buddhism is unique in saying there's no permanent soul reincarnated, more like a continuous flow of cause and effect. Attaining nirvana means extinguishing the causes of suffering, attachment, ignorance and aversion to end the cycle for good. Both these faiths stress ethical action and mindfulness, offering a perspective that death is a transition, not a termination. In Jewish thought, the world to come, Olam Haba, is a realm or era of spiritual fulfillment, and Gan Eden is seen as a paradise for the righteous, while Sheol represents a neutral abode for the dead. Although beliefs differ among Jewish traditions, there is a shared focus on living ethically here and now, with the afterlife serving as a purposeful extension rather than the main emphasis. Christianity is often associated with the idea of a heavenly abode. In my Father's house are many mansions, John 14:2. Believers hold that upon death one may be welcomed into God's presence, heaven, if they've sought forgiveness and salvation through Christ. For those who reject that grace, hell is described as a state of separation from God. Over centuries, Christians from diverse backgrounds have reported glimpses of this next realm in near-death experiences. Don Piper, a Baptist minister, wrote 90 Minutes in Heaven after a brutal car crash where he was presumed dead. He later described hearing celestial music and meeting deceased relatives in an atmosphere of overwhelming peace. Dr. Eben Alexander, with an extensive background in neurosurgery, having operated on thousands of brains, believed that what people called near-death experiences were biological and chemical brain occurrences. His in-depth experience and academic knowledge could not reconcile faith with his knowledge of science. He offers a testimony after an illness that caused total loss and control of the brain that controlled thought and emotions for 7 days. Before he came back to life, he was taken on a journey to an angelic place filled with love, which he only recognized as heavenly after returning to consciousness. The credibility of his story is attributed to the fact that he had no brain function for 7 days, a state that he did not control or could fabricate as he was in a coma. The lack of brain activity also gave credence to the fact that there were no chemical or biological events in those 7 days. Yet, there was an element of consciousness that was fully alive and engaging another world of mysteries and wonders. He became a Christian when he awoke. These stories, among many others, often come from people with reputable backgrounds, leaving many to wonder. Could they be fabricating tales, or did they genuinely glimpse a divine reality? These reported experiences aren't confined to one religion. While the imagery can vary, many people, be they Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, Christian or otherwise, speak of intense light, overwhelming peace and encounters with spiritual beings. Scientists often attribute these visions to a cascade of neurochemical events triggered by extreme stress on the brain. But believers argue that the consistency of these accounts across religions and cultures points to something beyond mere biology. Either way, there's no disputing the deep impact these experiences have on survivors and those who hear their stories. They can reshape entire life philosophies, turning skeptics into spiritual seekers. Let's circle back to the awe-inspiring design of our world and beyond. Think about the immense intelligence it takes for the brain to handle billions of neurons constantly firing in perfect sync, or the heart's meticulous timing as it pumps blood through our cardiovascular system. All while you read, breathe and dream. Multiply that complexity by the countless forms of life on Earth, plus the billions of galaxies in space, all moving with clockwork precision. Could something of that sophistication really just vanish into oblivion once we die? For many, the answer is a resounding no. The laws of energy conservation suggest that death would be a transformation experience and not disappearance. And the testimony of credible witnesses, people we trust not to spin tall tales, hints that our consciousness or soul may continue in ways we don't fully comprehend. All the religions provide an afterlife event, destiny or eternity, that's based on the life that the body lived before death. One's choices and decision, therefore, has a direct correlation to the ultimate path for their destiny. From those who have ventured into the afterlife and returned with what appears to be credible stories, the Christian viewpoint has most often underlined their heavenly stories. The fact remains, therefore, that if God and heaven really exist, then choosing to believe the Christian perspective and living that life accordingly could lead to an amazing, endless life beyond death. If one will pass on that chance now and it turns out Christianity is true, there is a risk of missing out on something huge. But if Christianity isn't real, living with compassion and hope before death still offers a fulfilling life, and there's nothing to lose when one dies. That's why a lot of people see this option as a no-brainer, safest bet. The Christian has the greatest chance of meeting the standards of the other persuasive thoughts, and also the best posture to avoid the consequences of failure, as the practice of Christianity avoid most, if not all, the pitfalls of the other faiths. It's just safer to be prepared for the possibility than to ignore it completely. Simply put, here are the 3 options for anyone's consideration. First, there's no loss in accepting Christ, living a good life and finding out Christ is not real after death. Second, there is much to gain if Christ is real and heaven is real, then the eternity of bliss in paradise awaits. Third, there is much more to lose if Christ is rejected and heaven and hell is indeed real. At the end of the day, no one can provide an absolute, universally accepted proof of what happens once the final heartbeat sounds. We can study the science of body and brain. We can weigh accounts of near-death experiences. We can look upon the majesty of the cosmos and marvel at how it all fits together. Yet each path, be it Islamic, Hindu, Buddhist, Christian or purely secular, offers only pieces of a puzzle that may forever remain partly hidden. Still, many find comfort and hope in believing our essence carries on, possibly drawn to the Creator who orchestrated the universe, possibly navigating cycles of rebirth, or maybe awakening in a realm that words can barely describe. Is it certain? Not scientifically, but perhaps that's where faith begins. The willingness to trust that so exquisite a design wouldn't simply blink out without purpose. So what do you think? Are we bound for heaven, reincarnation, Gan Eden, or something else entirely? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this exploration, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. After all, contemplating life's big questions together makes the journey a little less scary and a lot more meaningful.